This slideshow will cover 2 days of a 2020 trip to India, January 16th and 17th, just before the world shut down. It's a visit to the Choral Valley meter gauge and the only time in my travels where I was robbed. Join me now as I butcher the pronunciation of all these places. India once had an extensive network of meter gauge railways, but over the past several decades most have been rebuilt to Indian broad gauge, 5 foot 6 inches between the rails. This little red line here is the Choral Valley, saved from abandonment to survive as a tourist line and to serve the rural communities in the area. Though this part of the line is being replaced with broad gauge, the new line will take a different route. Fast forward several days into my India visit, which started in Mumbai. I traveled by rail, arriving in the city of Indore in the state of Madhya Pradesh on the evening of January 15th. This story starts the next morning with a broken shoelace at the hotel. After breakfast, I head out to try and find a replacement. Figuring this may take a while, I venture out and notice this place straight across the street. Walking over, I point to my shoe. Within seconds, a hand reaches from the back holding the exact color and length that I need. Well, that was easy. I pack up and head to the train station to catch a broad gauge train traveling 14 miles south to Mao, where the meter gauge originates. I board a sinfully ugly DMU. This line is new, having recently been electrified and converted to broad gauge. There was a proper platform on the other side of the train, but that doesn't stop passengers from hopping off on this side and crossing the busy mains. There are lots of Elco diesels in India like this one, an Indian class WDG-3A, an Elco model DL560C with a 251C prime mover. After detraining at Mao, which was renamed in 2003 but everyone still seems to use Mao, I have over an hour layover before the meter gauge train leaves. Don't know what this platform sweeper is actually called, but in my head it's a Zamboni. There are switch moves happening on both the narrow and broad gauge, both with Elco power. I learned a long time ago when traveling where I don't speak the language, the easiest way to eat is just point to something on the menu. For lunch, I'm having the special? After lunch, it's on the Elco powered meter gauge train to Omkareshwar Road. The trip will take about 2 hours. Our power is an Elco RSD-30, Indian class YDM-4. Of the nearly 700 built in India between 1961 and 1993, less than 60 now remain active. The scenic portion of the trip begins at Patalpani, where there is a park with a waterfall. The route takes the train high above the Coral River through several tunnels and high bridges. This scenic section is short and ends before the train arrives at Kalakund. There is a train especially for tourists that runs just to here every day. It's brightly decorated with murals of the train and area. Stepping off at the end of the line, I expected to be accosted by the usual unwelcome solicitations for taxis like every other place in India. Nope, nothing. Not much here at all. I flagged down a northbound bus to the next town, Barwaha, where lodging was found. When I had rested away some of the pain from the day, I ventured trackside to watch the northbound returning to Mao. The busy crossing was protected by a signalman. He controlled the gates and the signals manually. After the train passes, he lets the traffic loose. Then went looking for dinner. I saw this phenomenon several times in India. Apparently when the roads get widened through town, they just crash out the front of the buildings, leaving everyone to just keep doing business in the remnants. The hotel arranged a car and driver for the next day. I went out before he arrived and found this for breakfast. He was prompt at 7 a.m. and we set out for Patapani Falls. Along the way, I was following along with my phone's GPS. He wasn't making the correct turns, and every time I pointed this out, he told me I was wrong. Then he would stop and ask somebody roadside for directions. They would direct him back to the road I told him to turn on. This happened 3 times. It took so long that I worried I'd miss a photo of the first train. He dropped me off at the park and I warned him it may be many hours before I returned. I hiked across the park to the railway, buying a bag of unknown snacks from a vendor along the way. After reaching the railway, I started looking for a vantage to shoot the first train. I had no idea of the danger I was walking into. I found a spot for a shot just in time for a northbound with an Alco RSD-30 on each end fighting up grade. I move a few hundred feet from the first spot, find a vantage for the next train, drop my stuff and find a rock to sit on and wait. I am entertained by the monkeys in the distance. After a while I decide to check out the contents of the bag of snack food and I take it out of my backpack. As soon as I re-sit on the rock, Mr. and Mrs. Monkey appear from the cut. Mrs. Monkey starts towards me. Mr. Monkey heads off to the right. I'm thinking I could share some of whatever this was with the monkeys. I can be entertained by feeding monkeys. I don't get to do this at home. I open the bag and Mrs. Monkey gets really close. I lift the camera to take this picture and suddenly a rush of fur as Mr. Monkey blindsides me. I feel his feet as he vaults off my lap and takes the bag of unknown snack. The contents of the bag spill on the ground, but Mr. Monkey continues to clutch the empty bag. I figured, after the slick move they made with Mrs. Monkey distracting me while Mr. Monkey pulled that maneuver, these two were working together. I thought Mr. Monkey would be grateful for Mrs. Monkey's help. Nope. Mr. Monkey is a massive jerk. Mr. Monkey hasn't quite grasped that the bag he has is empty. He chases away Mrs. Monkey while defending his empty bag. Mr. Monkey realizes what has happened and begins aggressively chasing poor Mrs. Monkey away. Mr. Monkey then goes to town on the mystery snacks as Mrs. Monkey sulks at the top of the cut. I am super amused by this. This may be the highlight of the trip. I don't care that there's nothing to eat now. That stuff probably wasn't healthy anyway. As I watch Mr. Monkey chowing down, a little voice creeps into my head. It says, "Hey, that little monkey just robbed your lunch. Should you let him get away with that? Look at what a jerk he's being to Mrs. Monkey. You're way bigger than that monkey. You should do something." I give in to the little voice in my head. I lift both feet and stomp them back to the ground. Mr. Monkey suddenly stops eating and looks straight at me. I would recognize the "seriously, dude?" look on any primate's face. Okay, it's cool, monkey. Go back to eating. A short time later, the southbound train can be heard stopping at the station around the curve. I stand ready to compose a shot, hoping the monkey stays long enough for the train to show. He does not. Perhaps my change of position made him nervous? Maybe he thought I was planning revenge. Mrs. Monkey takes his place just before the train comes by. It's a specially decorated tourist train with Alco RSD-30 6717. I wish Mrs. Monkey a good day and apologize for the males of the world. While constantly looking over my shoulder for more evil monkeys, I hike farther up the railway looking for a spot to photograph the next train. I have almost 2 hours to look before catching it here. You can see that the lawyers and insurance companies haven't spoiled all the fun. Passengers are allowed to hang out in the open doorways. Hiking farther in, 2 hours later, catch a northbound at Bridge 647. A through train has combined with the tourist train. I hike back out and find my driver patiently waiting. I have him take me to Indore, where I will fly out the next morning to southern India to continue the exploration. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you want to see more from this trip.